Good morning, Year 2. Your learning objective for today is to plan a retell. Over the last few days, we have been developing our vocabulary and ideas towards your big write tomorrow. I would now like you to put some of your ideas into a structured format ready to help you with your big write tomorrow. Before we look at your planning grid, I would just like to do a quick recap about past and present tense. We're going to look at a couple of sentences from the story and just make sure they make sense and the tense is correct. The first sentence reads, Mr. Grinling walk around the lighthouse. Does that make sense to you? If we look at the sentence, the verb here is walk. If he's already done it, it should read walked. Now the sentence makes sense. Let's read it and check. Mr. Grinling walked around the lighthouse. That sounds much better. The next sentence reads, Sometimes at night, as Mr. Grinling lay asleep in his warm bed, the ships would toot to him. Does that make sense to you? As I read the sentence, I can see the word sleep, when really it should read sleeping. Let's check the tense now makes sense. Sometimes at night, as Mr. Grinling lay sleeping in his warm bed, the ships would toot to him. That sounds much better and the tense is now correct. The last sentence reads, Each morning, whilst Mr. Grinling polished the light, Mrs. Grinling worked in the kitchen of the little white cottage. Does that make sense to you? Is the tense correct? I can see within this sentence there are a couple of verbs that need changing. Each morning, whilst Mr. Grinling polished the light, Mrs. Grinling worked in the kitchen of the little white cottage. This sentence now makes sense and the tense is correct. Please make sure when you're writing your sentences in your retell, your tense is correct and your sentences make sense. Now let's have a look at your planning grid for today. You'll find this activity again on Purple Mash, so you can access it on there, complete the task and send it back to me ready for marking and feedback. You've all used these sorts of planning grids before, so they're all familiar to everybody. Down the side we have different headings and these are the different things that you need to include. You might include just some keywords and short simple sentences today, ready to help you for your big write tomorrow. The first part of the grid that needs to be completed is time connectives. Here is a little word map just to remind you of some of the time connectives that you can use when including them in a retell. These need to be included along the top line in each of the boxes to make sure the story will make sense. There's a picture of each event throughout the story just to keep your ideas in the right order. What happened? In this section here, you might just want a simple sentence or a few key words just to trigger your memory when writing your retell tomorrow. The speech box. You could look back at your learning from earlier on in the week when you developed your speech. You could take ideas from this or include new ideas that you've thought of as you're completing your planning grid. Wow words and extra detail. This could be words from the story that you've remembered or ideas that you've developed over the week of your own. Once you've completed your grid, make sure you check again for all our non-negotiables, especially spellings. Check that everything's accurate, send it to me, I will mark it and send you your feedback.